Welcome to Everything House Music and More, and today's special guest, we have the one and only, the legendary Steve Silk Hurley. Steve, what's going on, my brother?
What's up, Mo?
Hey, man, this is an honor. It's a privilege, man, and I am just flabbergasted that you're doing this, man, and I really appreciate this, man.
Hey, you know I wouldn't have it any other way, man. We go way back.
All right, so we just gonna get into it.
Go back to the lodge.
All right, so Hurl. Celeste Alexander tells the story of both of you going to the Loop College and you being obsessed with hot mixing.
Yep.
How did you get started hot mixing, and who taught you, and what were the first records you began practicing with, and what year was it?
What's crazy is it pretty much started with me being that guy at the picnic with the boom box, making cassette pause button tapes. And before I even heard anybody mixing, I was like trying to pause stuff on beat. Wow. And I heard Disco DAI with Kenny Jam and Jason. So like a lot of stuff happened before I got to that point where I met Celeste. Right. Because I didn't even know that mixing existed like that. I used to go to St. Albans every once in a while and see people like Kirk Townsend up there DJing when I snuck out the house. Right. Because I definitely couldn't get out to go there.
we gonna get into that. Yeah.
Early Hurley, that's me. Yeah.
Right.
So basically, I always was the one who wanted to select the music to play for people and bring a smile to their face. So when I found out I could mix music, then I didn't have the equipment, so I started borrowing my brother's equipment, like getting on his equipment when he wasn't around and tearing stuff up. And eventually I got my own equipment. But when I heard Kenny Jason and Peter Lewicki on Disco DAI mixing that disco stuff, I was hooked. I was like, I got to learn how to do that. So just over a period of time, you know, I went to UIC for a little while, and Ernie Green was the sound man and DJ there. That's right. So I heard him before I ended up going to Loop College because I wasn't really concentrating on school. I just really wanted to do music, and I really didn't even do my homework, my study for tests. I was horrible. I was horrible at UIC. I just totally lost focus. And you know, because I was figuring out what I wanted to do. And so I just started practicing, learning how to spin, got myself some belt drive turntables and the Gemini mixer, and built my own DJ case. And by that time, that's when I met Celeste. I would say, what year would that have been? 81, 82? 82. Probably, yeah, because that was before I got in the DJ battle. Right.
And what records were hot back then, at that time?
We were playing, I remember when I first started getting what we called house music. Right. We didn't really call it, did we call it house music? I don't even know.
We're going to get into that too.
Yeah, I don't know if we were calling it house music at that point. I just know we were playing like, I bought Patrice Rushen, Forget Me Nots. What year was that? That was
I don't know.
So that would have been
84,
like that was when I started buying 12 inches from Loop Records. Like Forget Me Nots. Then you had Beckett Records. I'll Do Anything for You. Morgan, like all that New York stuff, and then and also I was buying. I also had collection of like Harold Melvin, the Blue Notes, and all that old disco that made me feel good. And James Brown and just Body Heat, all that. That stuff was like stuff that I liked anyway before I even got into the house culture at all. But it ended up coming back to me later on when people started embracing digging in the crates.
What records were you practicing with back then?
I think my first records I got was like Rapper's Delight, Curtis Blow, The Breaks, Curtis Blow. As far as like stuff to mix with, I already had stuff like Kool and the Gang, like all the normal funk stuff that I was playing at Sock Hops back in the day. Before I graduated from high school, that I didn't consider that really DJing, because I was just kind of putting records on.
And just
that was in like 79, 80. But
and you graduated in 80.
I graduated in 80, but I didn't really start, learning the art of like actually DJing with a mixer till like 80, 81 when I graduated and went to UIC for a little while, and then I ended up at Loop College because I wasn't really concentrating on school when I was up at UIC. Yeah, that's the nice way of saying how well I did at UIC.
Okay. So there was a growing juice bar party scene on the South Side rooted in punk out and underground disco. How did you discover that scene?
My first experience with that scene would have been going to the Loft.
Okay. And where was the Loft at?
The Loft was on right over here on Michigan.
Okay.
What was that? 14th, maybe 14th in Michigan.
Okay.
Maybe further north.
Right.
And I heard it was a chosen few crew pretty much. It was Andre, Tony, Wayne.
Okay.
Who else was part of that crew back then? Andre, Tony, Wayne. Who am I leaving out? This is one. Alan.
Alan? Okay.
Yeah. So they were not only playing like stuff from like Prelude Records and West End and like all that, New York club music, but they were playing, like just anything old disco.
Okay.
And it was like a group of the thing that really made it different for me was that they were playing those records.
The punk out records and everything.
The punk out records and the New York records.
Okay.
Like what you would consider garage music, I guess, what Larry Levan was playing.
At that time, we didn't have house music yet.
Right.
Okay.
But we did have Frankie Knuckles was at the Warehouse before that.
Right.
And I knew what music he was playing.
Okay.
Which was a more like kind of like more the disco, the soulful disco that was being played, dance, and we used to call those house cuts.
Okay.
So that's
now. Okay, you used to call those house cuts.
Yep.
So let me interject there. We can ask this. So where do you think the term house music came from?
It's kind of like a melting pot of a lot of different things that happened. So you got me hearing from, I remember a guy named Kevin Jackson. He played me a cassette. Okay. And he was like, yeah, these are some house cuts. Frankie did this. This is a tape Frankie did.
Okay.
He called them house cuts.
Right.
And it had like a bunch of the stuff. There was like early 80s disco and stuff like that. And that was what we call house cuts. So that fast forward maybe a couple of years after we've already been listening to that music and the newer music that was coming out in the early 80s.
Right.
The Prelude stuff and all that stuff. Beckett Records, like I said, who was it? We still even consider anything with a 4 on the floor. We consider something that we could play because it was more like it was dance music, but we didn't really give it a title.
Right.
We didn't really give it a title of house music.
Right.
It just kind of morphed into it.
So where you think the term house music? So you saying the term house music came from the Warehouse where Frankie Knuckles was playing at?
I think that was my experience.
Okay.
Of hearing the term for the first time.
Okay. So
I stuck with that in my head.
Okay.
But I've heard people talk about the fact that they were playing music at house parties, and to be honest, Alan King and Tony Hatch and all those guys, they used to DJ in Peel Hill at these house parties, and they were off the hook.
Right.
And South Commons, they used to have parties over there. So maybe they were referring to some of those house parties as being house music from there. So I don't feel like it makes a difference. Just like I don't feel like it makes a difference, who was the first to do this and that. Like,
since you're there, then we're gonna backtrack. So we're gonna go ahead and forward it. What do you think was the first house records? Was it one of your records? Was it Jamie Principle? Was it Jesse Saunders? Or was it Chippy?
First house recording, I would say, is Jamie Principle, Your Love.
Okay.
But first record, house record, Jesse Saunders, either On and On or what was the other? That was probably On and On was probably it. And we played that along with other music that we would call house. So, whether you liked it or you didn't like it or you felt like it wasn't authentic because he didn't say house on it. I don't think that.
You don't think Chipsy, It's House was the first house record by saying that term?
I think all of this stuff happened at the same time.
Okay.
So I don't know. I think Jesse was the first to turn house music into a business and actually put the record out. So technically he started the genre with his record because his was the first to come out. Okay. But that doesn't mean that he was the only one doing music.
Okay. No.
It was just when you start a genre, it's based on when the actual records were released officially. Because I could go back to my stuff. Right. That I was playing on 4-track at your parties and things like that. Yeah. Some of that stuff I was doing before any records came out, but it doesn't really matter because it was technically just a demo. Right. because I didn't release it.
Correct. Okay. No. All right. We leave it there. So, it is rumored that a DJ battle, was your breakthrough as a DJ in that scene. Is that true?
I would say there was 3 DJ battles.
Okay. Tell us about some of the battles, and then why you think you stood out at those battles.
Well, I was in the lab practicing, like in the basement, like just learning tricks and different things.
Okay.
And I got the opportunity to be in a battle that a guy named Hurley threw at the El Panama, which was just a lounge.
Right.
And I won that battle. Then I got in a battle at the Penthouse, which I think it was like people like Celeste and Andre Hatchett. And I don't know if Andre was in the battle, but it was, I think, Keith Fobbs, a few other people.
Now, this battle was just to be a battle, not to get into like the Hot Mix 5.
But this is what led me into even being noticed, because nobody knew who I was, because I wasn't really part of the scene. I couldn't get out the house. So by being in those battles, then I won the Sawyer's battle, and I was actually known for being one of the DJs at Sawyer's after I finally won that battle. That was monumental for me with Dave Risque.
Right.
Because he was throwing the parties there, Gucci Productions, and he was doing that. So basically, I got in a few other battles after that, and I really should have just left it alone. But, but there was another battle for the Hot Mix 5, which I think that's what you're talking about.
Okay.
There were 2 battles for the Hot Mix 5 to see who would get the spot.
Right.
And it was at the South Side. It was South Side, West Side, and North Side.
Correct.
So in the South Side battle, it was me, Little John.
Ferris.
I wish I knew who the other ones were.
Ferris.
Right. Oh yeah, Ferris.
Yep.
And
it was somebody else. Lil Jon said he didn't. He think it was
I don't
Elwood
know,
Crosby.
But whoever was in it, they was all cold. Like so, it wasn't like some little pushover thing or nothing like that. But I felt like I won. And at the end, they said I was the winner. But now I heard recently that it was something going on with that. But I didn't know nothing about that. I felt good about it.
Right.
And then I went on to the next battle, which was supposed to be to see who was going to actually get the spot, which was the North Side, South Side.
Right. This was the first time. Right.
That was at Rainbow.
Right.
And that's the one that I didn't win.
Okay.
Because Julian Perez won. So
who was all in that battle? You, Julian Perez,
and from the West Side, Terry. What's his last name? A dude named Terry. I can't remember his last name.
Not Baldwin, was it?
No, it was different Terry. Yeah, but I didn't win that one. But eventually, I ended up in the Hot Mix 5. So it didn't really affect anything. Yeah. I mean, I didn't know anything about what happened with John and what was said about that. So I just. John is my boy, though. I mean, him and Ferris killed it. They were like some young bucks coming up, and I was like trying to hold my own with them.
Right.
Yeah.
You were able to do guest mixes on the radio pretty early in your career. What station were you on, and did you submit a tape to Lee Michaels to become part of the Hot Mix 5 when it first started?
I didn't even know about that.
Okay.
I was out of the loop with that. So basically, my start in radio was Herb Kent giving me the opportunity to be on his show.
Oh, wow, okay.
And then I went to GCI, and while that was going on, the Hot Mix 5 was on fire. That's where I really wanted to be, because I wanted to play that music for that audience. Okay. And eventually, Farley pulled some strings to get me in over there, even though I hadn't won the battle. Right. Some spots opened up, and he pulled me in.
Oh, wow. So when you was on GCI, what were they calling it? When you were on GCI?
Hot Mix, what was it called? The Mix Masters or something like that? I think it was called the Mix Masters. Okay. Yeah. So basically, Farley and I became real close. Like, and we actually we were like best friends. We actually became roommates. Everything. Like, we hung out. Right. We worked on our craft together. We challenged each other. Like, it was good. It was a learning experience for me. And then he had the opportunity because he had been doing it a little bit longer than me. Right. And he had built a certain status, and he kind of pulled me up and let me open up on some of his parties. Right. And some of them, like, he would leave me there, and he'd come back, and they'd be hanging off the rafters. He's like, wait a minute. I don't want you playing like that. Right. So he's probably thinking to himself, like, man, I better stop. Wow.
So, on the subject of Farley, you two were like the dynamic duo long before the records and conflict of the years later, later years that come about. How did Farley Keith influence you as a DJ and as a friend?
I think, first of all, Farley is one of the most fun dudes to be around.
Right.
But he crazy. You crazy, Farley.
That's Farley Jack Master Funk.
I got to say, those are some of my best years. Like, you know how when you go away to college and you like do all kinds of stuff, and you're like, man, I was kind of wild in college. Like, so that was my college.
Yeah.
You know, being a roommate with Farley, you can imagine.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
it just was, you know, it was just crazy. But the friendship was cool, and we connected with each other on the techniques for putting together records even before we started doing records, because we started using drum machines. And one of my first drum machine was a Casio. Like, we just used to, him and I used to always to be together. So if he was buying a Casio, I was buying a Casio, or vice versa. Or if I was buying a Boss Dr. Rhythm, he was buying one. Like, we were like, yeah, this is gonna be it. Because we didn't have 808s or anything like that. Right. But then he was making a lot more money than me, because he was in the Hot Mix 5 before me. Right. So he was getting them checks every. Now,
you guys were living with each other at this time when he was in the Hot Mix 5.
Yeah, over there on Harrison and right off the Eisenhower.
Now, I know you say you're crazy, but what was that like? Like, I mean, y'all come in and just start battling with each other, or?
He had his room, I had my room, I had my stuff set up, he had his stuff set up. But he had a Lindrum. That's what I was trying to say. He had more money. Right. So he had a Lindrum, and he started making records with the Lindrum, and I started helping him a little bit. I put a few keyboards in there and stuff. So on some of his earlier records, like Funk in the Bass or something like that? I forgot that.
Funk in the
Drums.
Right.
Like some of those, I helped him a little bit with that, and then he helped me with Music is the Key. Right. We had a friendship like that. We were like colleagues, and we were doing what we did. You know, like it. So I never, no matter what happened between me and Farley, the things that kind of went wrong, I don't regret being Farley's friend. Right. And the things that we brought to each other, and how we were good for each other during that period of time. You know, it was a chapter that was really good. And, you know, sometimes chapters don't last. They turn it. You know, you go on to the next chapter.
Absolutely.
But that doesn't mean that you hold any ill will. Even when people do things that you don't think they should have done. Right. I don't hold on to that, because that'll eat away at you.
Exactly. No, that's good. So before the genre house music came about, there was a house music culture, we should say. The parties people went to, the music that was played, and the way people dressed and spoke. Where do you remember the name house music coming from, and like before the culture, like before the genre of house? Where do you remember that the term house culture coming from?
House for the music.
Yeah.
Now, house for the music, I think what happened was we started doing all these different re-edits of disco records, first of all. Right. And records that weren't disco or whatever. We just would make special edits. But we wanted to make them house, which was give it some punch, like make it more punchy. So one of my first ones that I did was Jungle DJ, and I put a Boss Dr. Rhythm underneath it. Nice. And gave it to Ron Hardy, and he was playing that every week. Right. Like, he was killing it. Right. Like, my mix, because at first he had just an edit, but it didn't have the drums in it. Right. So I pretty much housed it up. It's almost like what you would call a rework now. Yeah. Except I had to do that stuff manually. I was like putting the record on top of the beat. So you didn't program it or anything, or sample it? No, I had the drum machine running, and then I had the 2 copies of the record, and I went.
Oh, wow.
Then bring the other one. Right. So I was doing like some New York stuff, like how they do the backtracking and stuff like that. So and then I would just go back and edit it. Wow. And that's why if you listen to my version of that, you'd be like, some of those are off, but but it didn't really matter, because that was like still some off the hook stuff for that period of time. It was like just to even be having some other drums on top of something.
So were you editing just on cassette tape?
That was on reel-to-reel cassette. I would record it to a reel-to-reel, then bounce to another reel-to-reel, then bounce to a cassette, and then bounce back to the reel. Or I'd do some edits on the reel and bounce that to cassette, because I had a 4-track cassette. Right. So then once I did that, I was like, wait a minute, what if I just made my own version of I Can't Turn Around? Because that was a popular loop that everybody was looping, the end of I Can't Turn Around. So for years, I was playing my version of I Can't Turn Around that I did on a synthesizer, and you know, it didn't come out until the other one came out. And that's a whole different story for the ages. If you want to know about it, check out the Chicago LP. Farley talked about it. So, hey, so he apologized. I'm good. Like,
you don't need
people
to do
think we want smoke with each other, that's not what it is. Like, we just, hey, we were kids. You know, when you look at it, we were very young and had a lot to learn.
Absolutely.
And you know, sometimes you have to just learn how to forgive and just move on to the next thing.
Right. No. So you eventually became a part of the Hot Mix 5.
Yep.
What was your feelings about finally becoming a member of such an iconic group?
Man, I was on top of the world. I was just, if I could put that time in a bottle, that was crazy. Because I remember my day would consist of get up, run to Evergreen Plaza, me and Farley go act crazy at the mall, drinking a big old Slurpee, like eating some rib tips that night. Everything. That's how I was gaining weight. I was like eating all kind of stuff. But the day was like jam packed, full of fun stuff. Yeah. And then that night we were doing our music. And I would do a new track and I would put it in my mix when I was in the Hot Mix 5 before I even did Music Is the Key. Wow. I was making tracks and playing them in my mix. They didn't even know I was making original music and playing it in the mix.
Wow. So speaking of music,
technically that stuff was being published because it was being played. So
that's true.
I mean, it's not a record, but it was being played. You know.
So would you consider one of you're the first house music artist since you was doing that then?
I mean, we definitely were the first house music group.
No, I just want to make
house music group.
I just want to make sure people know that.
Like JM Silk became the first like real house music group.
So now we were talking about that. So Music Is the Key was your first official release as JM Silk.
Right.
How did that come about, and how come I Can't Turn Around didn't come first, and why the name JM Silk?
I didn't understand how the music business worked. So if I would have put I Can't Turn Around back in 84 or whenever that was, 83, 84. I know when I don't know when that was when I came to DJ for you all, but I was playing.
That was like 80, 84, 83, 84?
Yeah, because it was a place called The Lodge, right?
We did, it was out in the suburbs, and I forget what it was.
I think it was called The Lodge.
At first, you was doing the Glenwood skating rink.
Okay, I know I used to do the Glenwood. Yeah, even when I went to Glenwood skating rink, I used to have my 4-track recorder, and I'd be playing the I Can't Turn Around, and I can't. It was like the real raw version. Yep. But it wasn't a record. But I didn't know I could do a cover. I could have just said, okay, Isaac Hayes wrote this song, and this is my rendition of his song, and I could have put it out. But I didn't know that. I had nobody to really advise me on how to do that. So Music Is the Key ended up coming first. I had another track, I Don't Know, that I had been playing.
Straight instrumental, I remember that,
And then I had like 3 or 4 versions of I Can't Turn Around.
So you just music, it just came out because you didn't know better and you just wanted to put it out.
Yeah, I didn't know how to put it out.
Okay.
I didn't know what it would cost.
Right.
So that's what I give Jesse credit for, is that he started the industry here with house music, because once he put it out, then everybody was like, oh, you can actually put it out on a record? Yeah. And I was like, I want to put out a record. So I borrowed some money from my dad, and I put out Music Is the Key with Rocky Jones. I put up some money and he put up some money, and we put it out.
So why the name JM Silk? What did that stand for?
Jack Master Silk.
Jack Master Silk.
Sound familiar?
Yeah, that sounds familiar. So let's go into that story a little bit. So why didn't you just say Jack Master Silk?
Because at that point there was another Jack Master.
Right. Okay. All right.
So the reason that happened is because when Farley even explains it, why he took the name, because he felt like because he started before me, that he was the Jack Master. So how dare me say I'm the Jack Master?
Even though you came up with the name.
Yeah. But it's just like some OG stuff. Like hey, I get it. Right. Now I can sit back and laugh at it, but then I didn't understand it. Yeah. Like how somebody could do that. So that was like one of the straws that broke the camel's back too.
I remember that story because everybody's been talking about that. So I remember, I think you came up with the name, you wanted to use that, and then he went on the station that day and announced that he changed his name. Yeah,
but I had already started saying that, even if you listen to Music Is the Key, it says a Jack Master Jock can open up the lock because he has a key to unlock your body.
Right.
Yeah, so I'm the Jackmaster. Like, that was in the song. I had like rough versions of that. So I guess he was like, nah, I'm not gonna let him do that. Like, he's like, Farley's like a marketing genius, so he wasn't gonna let me one up him on that. But it's almost like when I play basketball, how I'm cool with the competition, and you know, like I say, you don't want no smoke. I want the smoke. I'm just like that. So I get it. I'm cool with it now, because I understand, because I learned a lot from that experience. And if you can't, you know, you got to learn from things that you go through, even if it's something bad that happens to you or something somebody did wrong to you. You know, you just have to learn to move on, and not treat it as something that'll help you to not make those mistakes again.
So what was your relationship with Rocky Jones on DJ International?
DJ International, that was the record pool that we all were in. Okay. Which was really a good record pool with Benji and everybody. Rest in peace, Benji. Right. And originally I had talked to Jesse about trying to get a record out.
That was my question.
Yeah, and then he was Jesse like, nah, he's like, it's okay, but you probably should put some vocals on it. And then when I put the vocals on it, it sounded, my version sounded just okay. I don't know if I ever let Jesse hear it again, but at that point I was kind of moving on to try to learn how to do it myself. So I felt like doing it and kind of being in control of it along with Rocky, that was like a better way for me to do it. Yeah. Because he had the resources to promote it. Okay. And because he was a record pool, they knew distributors.
Did you ever think about putting it out with Larry Sherman at that time too?
I thought for about, let me see, how many milliseconds are in a second? How many milliseconds are in a second? Right. Is it? Do you know how many? Is it like 1,000?
I'm glad you.
So
didn't
maybe
do that.
1 millisecond.
Even though he said he put it out on your label too, anyway. So.
I'm sure he bootlegged it. Right. He actually pressed the first copies. That's why they were so crackly. Wow. Yeah, it was bad. But anybody who got those first copies of Music Is the Key, they were glad when the next batch came out. Or they might have tried to trade them in.
Oh my goodness, that's crazy, man.
The Snap Crackle Pop was in full effect.
So, knowing that Larry put it out, did anybody try to stop him?
As far as what, bootlegging? Yeah. I mean, Rocky said he went down there and blah, blah, blah. But you know what? With me, what's so funny, I was so into the creativity. Right. You got to look at somebody who wanted to always be a DJ. Now I'm on in the Hot Mix 5, and I'm making records. I'm enjoying that. Right. I'm enjoying being young, single, free, and just enjoying doing what I love. So a lot of business stuff just kind of slipped through the cracks. Absolutely. And when somebody else would step in and do something, I would just let them handle it. Which is, we both ended up, doing the ID Records thing. Yeah. And our manager, we ended up with the same manager, of course. Yeah. And we had to learn from that experience. We all learned from that experience.
So hold on, I'm gonna get to that. But I'm just saying, music is the key, and the follow-up, Shadows of Your Love, blew up as house music starts to gain New York's attention. Mm-hmm. You and Keith Nunley, the vocalist for Jam Silk, formed the band, right? Right. Tell us how that relationship developed, and why do you think it broke up?
Well, Keith was a well-known singer who had sung in bands, fast talent shows throughout the years, and I didn't know anything about that, but I heard that he was a great singer. So when I had my demo, Music Is the Key, people were dancing to it, but I felt like it could be better if I had like a real singer, because Colonel Abrams was hot at that time. It was like, I was like, man, I want my own like Colonel Abrams type voice or something like. And so I heard about him. I brought him in. I just hired him to sing on it, and it was like magic in the room, So then when the record took off and when it started charting and people were playing it, I was like, why don't we just be a group? Right. And we just leave the name. The name is Jam Silk. Let them just think that's just the name of the group. Like we won't say Jam Silk featuring Steve Silk, Hurley, and Keith Nunley and all that. Right. And then I learned like real quick how to become an artist. Yeah. Even though that wasn't something that I probably really wanted to do long term, I learned how to know that. Yep. I learned how to do that. Right. Just because now they were paying like 10 times what I was getting the DJ to perform, and then him and I get to split it. So that was pretty good. So we started doing shows, like 3 shows in a weekend. Okay. And man, it was a great situation. We really became a group. Like we were going to rehearsals every day. Right. Like we put in a lot of work
Okay.
Like people see that like powerhouse show on
Yeah.
on the YouTube.
Yeah, it's on
Us
there.
doing the
It's on
show,
there. I know.
and I'm up there trying to keep up with the steps. I did good enough to get by, but our shows were critically acclaimed. Like when we went out to New York, they were booing when we came out there, like, boo, go back to Chicago. And then by the end of the show, they were giving us standing ovations and talking about encore at like what was the name of that place? The Copacabana, like or Studio 54, like some of those older clubs.
So you did perform at Studio 54?
Yeah, even though it was like on the tail end. We did the
still
Paradise Garage.
Wow.
You know, Tony Humphries, what's the name of that? The place Tony Humphries.
Zanzibar.
The Zanzibar, yep. We did that about probably 8 times.
Wow.
Yeah, like all those kind of clubs, we were doing all that. And the thing is, I just really felt like I had done everything I could do as an artist.
Right.
I found out that I didn't like rehearsing the same songs to sing over and over again. Like Keith did. He was a true performer.
Right.
So that's his love.
Yeah.
So even, you know, working on new music, it just wasn't the same because I was distracted by the fact that I'm getting ideas every day. That's how Jack Your Body came along.
Okay.
Because that was just like me acting crazy on the mic, and that became like an example of me just being me.
Playing around.
And then...
But before then, now comes the major deal with RCA. How do you think that deal benefited JM Silk? And were there any downsides to taking the house music to a major label, you think?
The major label deal was like in the midst of all that. So we were doing the shows and then we got signed.
Okay.
And then the first single was supposed to be I Can't Turn Around.
Right.
After we already had Shadows and Music is the Key. So we were already doing shows. We had the I Can't Turn Around was getting ready to come out. And then Farley dropped Love Can't Turn Around.
Right.
And the way that happened was... him and I were roommates, but then we weren't roommates because Keith and I became roommates.
Okay.
Because we were a group.
Right.
So it sounds logical, right? That we may become roommates because now we're actually rehearsing every day.
Every day and being with each other, right.
We're in a group together. We're actually writing songs together.
Now, this is not in the same house, though, right? This is totally different area.
And separate. So then I got my own spot.
Okay.
And then Keith started staying with me a lot.
Okay.
And me and Farley we used to be roommates, but then he had his spot and I had my spot.
Right, okay.
So at that point, I guess all bets were off. Like I said, he felt like, I don't want to even say what he felt like. Watch the Chicago LP.
Right.
And you'll hear what he said. He said exactly why he did it. I tried to move on from it, and I'm cool with it.
Right.
And I still got love for Farley.
So I mean, if nobody can see that, explain what he said then. I mean, we right here at this platform. Explain why he did it.
He pretty much felt like I put him to the side for Keith almost, like.
Okay.
But I was still friends with him as far as I knew. I didn't, you know what I'm saying? I just got busy. Like,
right.
That happens a lot of times when people get busy with different things, and their old friends feel like they've changed, but they haven't really changed. They've gotten busy. Yeah. Like they're so busy that they don't have time to do the stuff that they used to do with you. So then I think he kind of took it personal, and he just felt like that was his end to just go ahead and do whatever.
So he heard you was doing I Can't Turn Around.
No, he witnessed me DJing, playing I Can't Turn Around on the radio at parties, just like you did. Like, so he knew I had the song. He knew I was recording it over again with Keith on the vocals with me.
Right.
And he knew it was getting ready to come out, and he still just got together with Vince and everybody and did it.
Wow.
You know, but a lot of people overseas, they have no idea that I even did a version before him. So when his came out and then mine came out, then it was like, you biting off Farley. Yeah. What are you doing? Yeah. Like, yours is just okay. His is the one. Like, so now I'm the one who's biting off somebody.
Right.
Like I said, I don't have regrets of that.
Absolutely.
And you know why I don't have regrets for that? Because when his record came out, it opened up house music in the UK.
Right.
And it went top 10 or 20 or something like that, to the point where they had their eye on house music. So by the time Jack Your Body came out, that was able to go #1 for 2 weeks.
And stay right there. And
so I don't want to block
right.
some blessing that happened to me because of something bad that happened to me. It opened up a door for something good. So that helps me to think now, like when something goes bad, Like
It's
that's
meant to
always
be.
a lesson that I learned
Yeah.
to always find the good in it. Like, okay, that door closed, what door just opened?
Right.
Like,
No, that's good.
Yeah.
So speaking of Jackie Body, that went #1 in the UK, which made you officially a pop star in the UK. What was that experience like, and how did you balance it with becoming relatively unknown in the US compared, from the UK to the US?
Oh wait, can I double back to Keith? I didn't answer the Keith question. So Keith and I didn't really fall out. We just grew apart because I started doing remixes,
correct,
doing stuff for 10 City.
Right.
I wanted to be. I didn't want to be an artist anymore.
Okay.
So we didn't technically fall out. Yeah, we had arguments just like anybody has arguments, but it wasn't like, oh man, I don't like you anymore. It was like he went solo, and I actually produced some records on his solo project, and you were involved in that with some remixes and stuff. So you know that, I mean, people disagree about stuff. So yeah, we didn't really totally fall out. We just went our separate ways. Like that's what a lot of this stuff is people going their separate ways and doing what they want to produce, do what they want to do.
I'm glad you cleared that up because I think a lot of people had that question, and I know Keith got his version of it, and we'll get that later. But I'm glad you.
And we even actually had a discussion because we were doing an interview on another media outlet, and I wanted to have a discussion with him about it.
Right.
And he told me some things that he thought was going on with me. Right. That I didn't know, and I told him some things that.
See, that's what about communication.
So the communication, when we had that communication, then that interview went great. Yeah. Like, because now we understood, what he was thinking and what I was thinking.
Absolutely.
And it was a slight little riff at the time, but it wasn't like anything major.
Right. Well, I'm glad you brothers got it together, man.
But your question, go back to your other question. I don't want to mess you up.
In 1987, Jackie Body went #1 in the UK, which made you officially a pop star in the UK. What was that experience like, and how did you balance it with being really unknown in the U.S. compared to the U.K.?
What's crazy is during the time that Jack Your Body took off, I was oblivious to the fact that it took off like it did.
Wow.
Because I was told by management that the record reached *1, but I thought he was talking about the dance charts. He didn't say #1 pop chart, and then he said something about top of the pops. They want you to perform on top of the pops, but we were working on our album, finishing the album. So he persuaded me to not go do the top of the pops.
So who was that?
My manager, Frank.
It was Frank Rodriguez at the time.
Frank Rodriguez.
Okay.
Yeah, so he convinced me that it was more important to finish the album, because if we didn't make the deadline for the album, then we would lose momentum.
Wow.
So, but technically I could have gone and done that, but then my eyes, I think, would have been open so wide to how big house music really was, that maybe he felt like he was going to lose some control there.
Yeah.
So, that's a learning experience for me too. Like, it's just communication, man. Like communication and like paying attention to stuff that's going on around you is key for any artist.
Yeah. So I'm gonna go back a little bit.
But your question was, how did I? So technically, I didn't go over there and see what was going on. So I was still this humble dude here.
Oh, so you never traveled over there after Jackie Body and see how huge it was? No,
I didn't even, for years I didn't, because I ended up being in the studio so much. When I switched to being more of a producer than an artist, I really didn't go over there. And I wasn't DJing.
Wow.
Except locally I would DJ a party here and there, but because that's my first love. But the studio became my life. Wow. You know what I mean? So I didn't really have that to compare. It wasn't like I was like I was a star over there and I wasn't here. I was actually, here I was getting accolades for being a DJ and being on the radio, but then I stopped doing that. I was just focused on the music.
Right.
And people saw my name on records and stuff like that.
It's still a little different, especially in the UK, man, because that record went #1, so you were a pop star. So if at that
Once
time,
I found out that, then I kind of knew.
Yeah.
And then when the checks started coming in, I knew it was something going on.
Because if you would have walked down the street and they knew you were Steve Hurley, oh man, you would have been got mobbed.
Yeah, everything. I found that out later. Yeah. So, I mean, I'm just like a humble person. My parents are real humble. They taught me to always be that way. So I think I didn't even want to believe I was that. I just wanted to just keep doing what I was doing because I love what I was doing, which was creating music, writing songs, being in the studio.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted to do, not I didn't want to be a star on the stage. Right. So if they wanted me to come to Top of the Pops, they want me to perform. So then that means I got to put together a show. So that kind of, I think that's why I didn't really worry that much about it. Yeah. Because I was happy with being able to put the album together.
Put everything together.
And get our music out.
I can understand that. The same thing with
me. But I
didn't
want them to feel like it was a snub to them that I didn't want to come. Right. It was like presented to me that I'm going to mess something else up if I do that.
So no regrets, right?
No regrets. Okay. No regrets whatsoever.
All right. So Fast 80 is credited as the creator of hip house, but often your production of It's Percussion by M-Doc is never mentioned, and it was released almost the same year. Which came first?
Oh, It's Percussion definitely came first. Right. Actually, Music is the Key came first, but I was not a hip hop artist in 1985, but it had the full rap in it and everything.
No, that is true.
So
that is true.
And over a house beat, but It's Percussion was done in like '87. Right. I have like the tapes from the session when we did it, and then I was playing it on the radio immediately because I was still DJing on I think GCI at that time. Yep. And I was playing it on there. Right. So, but the thing is, M-Doc didn't really want to be a house music artist. He was a hip hop. Right. He was a hip hop fan. Loved Public Enemy. He loved, Chuck D and all those guys. So he loved rapping over the house record. He was cool with it. Yeah. So M-Doc, he was like a true performer and an artist. Right. But he wasn't just into house music. His generation, he's younger than me, so they grew up listening to, Public Enemy and all those different artists that were hot at the time, Eric B. and Rakim. So that's his influence. Even though he liked house music, being from Chicago, he didn't want to be just a house music artist. He wanted to be a hip hop artist.
Yeah. So is that why that it wasn't never a follow up to It's Percussion?
Yeah. I mean, he was working on his album, which was mostly more hip hop. Right. And with a few house things sprinkled in, but back then you couldn't really be more than one thing. That's true. If you think about it, they didn't allow that.
No, that's true. No.
You got to be in this little tiny box.
So your production skills, Steve, and popularity led to early remix requests. What was your first paid remix, and what was that process like?
Let me see. First paid remix. Yeah. Some of the first things I did, I helped Hurley with some stuff. I helped Chippy do the edits on Like This, but it wasn't a paid remix. Okay. Tent City was one of the first. Yeah. Right Back to You. Before I did That's the Way Love Is, but I was also some independent projects that I did. Oh, my first major project that I did a remix on was Pseudo Echo Funky Town. Oh wow. Which was like not right after Jack Your Body. So that was actually my first official remix, and then I went to New York to do it. So I got the experience of seeing how they do stuff in New York too. Oh, and if you listen to that record, you'll be like, "That's Steve Hurley," because it don't really sound like me. Right. Because it had the touch of an engineer from New York. Yeah. It had that New York sound. Yeah. Meshed with what I was hearing, but so it was a little like a little bit less raw and more. It just sounded different. Wow. So you're a pioneer in stripping the vocal for a remix and creating a whole new production around it. Tell us how innovative that approach was and what technology played a role in that part. I would say one of the first records that I did where I just changed all the music. Yeah. And changed the whole track was either Roberta Flack or it had to be Roberta Flack, Ah Ah Ooh Ooh, because it was a ballad. And I spent it was Quincy Jones produced. Okay. And he had Greg Gaines on keys. Like he had the whole Patrice Russians and people
was that before Insanity Pointer Sisters?
That was way before. That was in 88.
Okay.
This was in 88. And that record was a R&B, contemporary R&B song, very conservative song. And I tried to do a remix on it that was R&B. Right. And I went to the studio up in Milwaukee on these digital tapes, 3 digital tapes, 32 track tapes, so 60-something tapes, 60-something tracks. Wow. And it was horrible. And then I got back and I said, I'm gonna do a house mix. And then I just took some of the drums that I got off the tape and I just made a house mix that night in 8 hours. And then I put it in there and it was nothing but her voice and me just with a whole new track. Yeah. And then I sent it to Atlantic, and they hated it, and they put it on the B side, and put Arthur Baker on the A side. Wow. And then when the DJs got it, they started playing my mix, and it just took off and went #1 And Roberta Flack actually called me. But that was like my first time really like taking all the music out of something and putting a whole new track. I used to just maybe add an acid bass line or add something to it, add some extra percussion.
Right.
But this time I actually made the whole new track and didn't use anything of theirs.
That was the start of it. Right.
And then Jamanda was one of the first ones too.
Oh yeah.
Where I just totally revamped even their vocal arrangement and made it into a different song that got a love for you, and made the music be a hook along with their vocals. Like so I started learning how to produce by doing remixes. Like, cause I was trying to produce on our first Jam Silk album, but I didn't know how to produce yet.
Right.
So by us having those S1000s and how we used to sample the vocals, and we had total control of everything. That was like our little ecosystem we had going, man.
And that's where I learned from. I mean, and when you say control, because you could control each verse, whatever you wanted to do, and that's where you taught me to sample each line, and then that's how you put it on the keys and place everything.
And then you can do whatever the heck you want to do. And then if you're doing a dub, your dub will be off the hook because you got everything right there.
You got everything right there.
Yep.
All right, from a Chicago house music point of view, tell us about your work with Jamie Principle and why he was so important to house music.
Man, before I even started doing music, Jamie Principle was an artist whose music I was playing courtesy off of a cassette or off of a reel-to-reel if I was lucky enough to get a reel of Your Love or Baby Wants to Ride. And that his music was actually, you would think it was a record the way it was being played around town.
Right.
So that's why I kind of think that he gets the short end of the stick, because his music didn't really come out properly. The stuff that was circulating around Chicago, he didn't have a way into the industry, just like I didn't have a way in with I Can't Turn Around. I didn't know what to do. He didn't know what to do. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's kind of a parallel situation. Then he met Frankie. Frankie was playing the stuff, and then he eventually, I don't know, whatever happened with all of that. It just got all crazy, and it got bootlegged, and it got real messy. And then he came into our camp, and we were trying to help him get his just due. I think and he became one of the writers that was co-writing with us on different things. Some of my songs that I wrote for CC and different people, he was jumping in because he was a great writer.
Absolutely.
And still is. I mean, but I think one of the things with Jamie is I look back and I usually don't have regrets, but I regret not saying, let's just let Jamie be Jamie. Let's just let him just be Jamie. That's like it might feel weird to you, might feel weird to me,
but it's Jamie.
But when he did Your Love and Bad Boy and all that stuff was weird. But look how good it is now. Like we got to let people be who they are. So I learned a lot about being a producer by some of the things I didn't do too. Like
correct.
Yeah, but he's very important to the scene. We all learned. He's the one who got me using the computer and Digital Performer.
Wow.
Because he had an SE, the little box-looking thing. He had an SE, and then he's like, and then he showed it to me. I was like, I got to get an SE and get off this emulator. Because I was using the emulator.
That sure
was. He showed me that computer. I was like, man, I want to do that.
And then things with it.
Then when I was able to sample, and I was controlling everything.
That's what. So at the time in the 90s, when you were super hot remixer, you open up your client list to form a remix outfit with myself, E-Smooth, as ID Production. What made you take such an organized approach when most producers just focus on themselves?
I saw a lot of you guys. When I looked at you guys, I saw myself in you because I saw the work ethic that both of you had, and I saw the talent, even the raw talent. Even when we didn't know how to do certain things, we were all three. I look at us as three like-minded individuals. We all, whether we were musically trained or not, we were gonna figure out how to get what we had in our head onto the tape. So I just was inspired by you guys having that same drive that I had, and I wanted you to have just as much of the opportunity as me. So when they wanted me to do Michael Jackson, why would I give them just my thing when I could let that be a commercial for you guys to show what you got? Because you guys had your own style. Yours was more underground, and E's was more late night. So we had like three different things, and mine I could be more commercial. So it benefited me too to have you guys there, even though I was giving you guys a look. You all were giving me a look at the same time. So it ended up being a good look for everybody. And I didn't mind sharing in some of the money and all that because I wanted. We actually ended up doing more work because we had more people to do it.
I think you started at that time a phenomenon that even New York people that was hot at the time, like Def Mix, came to us, was like, "What are y'all doing? Y'all taking almost 80%, 90% of our work."
Oh yeah, because we were hitting every genre.
Every genre.
Yeah, because it wasn't just me.
Right.
Like it was just me, and then they had Frankie.
Right.
Then they
they get a package.
If Dave was doing more underground,
right.
we were like, well, we got E Smooth, right? We got E Smooth. We got Mo, who's doing the stuff that's like more underground.
Yeah.
And
it was. I mean, like I said, I think that was a great moment at that time, man. That we created a moment, that everybody could relate to.
Yeah, that's for sure.
In 1993, shortly after I left ID Production, you parted ways with our longtime manager Frank Rodrigo. This was fresh off a $750,000 publishing deal and signing Donnell Rush, Shantae Savage to RCA, plus multiple deals with Smash Records. I know why I left. Why did you leave your longtime partner, and where did you ever were you ever tempted to reconnect?
Never tempted to reconnect because I'm the type that I'm the most loyal person in the world. But once I realized that you had ill intentions towards me and that you weren't really looking out for my best interests,
right?
I'm done with you. Once I'm done, I'm done. That's the way it works. But it was like the most trying time of my life from 93 to 1995, going through a lawsuit and just what I had to pay to just get my rights back and get the rights back to what I was entitled to for what work I put in, and it was like I felt so vindicated at the end when it was finally over and I was able to still retain something, you know what I'm saying, and my dignity and everything. But at the same time,
so during that time, Steve, what do you think Frank was thinking? I mean, because after I left, I didn't come back and I didn't really talk about it. But I'm just trying to figure out, what was that conversation like? Because you guys were partners.
Yeah.
So how did that feel? And knowing that this was your skill that developed and made the deal with and everything, and it was just like taken from us.
Yeah, I felt betrayed once I found out all the things that were happening that I didn't know about.
Right.
Like all the different opportunities that because it was $2,000 less or $5,000 less than what it's supposed to be.
Right.
No, we're not going to take Luther Vandross and Janet Jackson, The Best Things in Life, for free, or George Michael. Like he's turning down stuff.
Right.
And I don't even know he's turning it down.
Right.
Because I'm just in the studio like a busy bee working.
Right, exactly.
And then I find out all this stuff. I find out, I mean, even R. Kelly, I saw him in the subway before he blew up.
Right.
And I wanted him to come down there because I saw his talent.
Right.
And I found out years later, like literally 2 decades later, that he had come down and met with Frank, and he sent him away and said, no, Steve wouldn't want to work with you.
Wow.
And so for years, he was pissed off at me, and that's why I wasn't doing any work for R. Kelly when...
You know what? That is right. Yeah.
So eventually I talked to him.
Wow.
But,
damage was done already.
Damage was done. I did some stuff for him, but, but I've been fortunate, though, to work with a lot of different people.
Absolutely. Okay. So you've been Grammy nominated 4 times in your career. Although your production certainly deserved it, and I mean in a Grammy, you haven't won yet. Do you think the best remix category came too late in your career? And how do you feel Nearest could have better represented house music?
Wow, that's a good question. That's pretty much on point. Like, it's like I was a part of trying to help get that category.
No, I don't think. I think you were a part of getting that category. Then say you was. I mean,
no. I'm saying it was too late though.
Okay.
But because I felt like we needed to have the category.
Absolutely.
But by the time the category was voted in,
right,
my focus was not really remixes anymore.
Yeah,
and that was really, I think that was right around the time when we had the whole big ID breakup, right?
Yeah.
It was like right after that, right?
It was.
So
And
we were all kind of like trying to figure out our lives and starting our own labels and trying to rebuild the pieces that fell apart, you know. So I wasn't like on the grind like I was from, say, 89 to 93.
Yeah.
Where I had so many records coming out.
Yeah.
I mean, that would have been, I would have probably won 92 or 93 because I had like tons of, I mean, like every record.
Right. So I think people don't know because people don't recognize that the reason why this category exists is because of you.
Oh, wow.
And a lot of people don't know that, or they think it's because somebody from New York did it. But they don't understand that you pushed for it. You was a trustee that went there and spoke about it. And you get this category. So what I want people to really recognize you as a pioneer to put this through, because I wouldn't have a Grammy if it wasn't because of you.
Hey,
you know what I'm saying?
I appreciate it. And I was happy for you. Man, we were there, man. It was a happy, but sad occasion.
Right. But the thing is, Steve, I think you should have been the third one to get something for a best remix project because you had the radio hits. Yeah. You did the radio. Everybody was calling you, and you deserve that. And I think it's gonna come still, man.
It's cool. I mean, I feel like I haven't done my best records yet. I never feel like that, you know.
Right.
And the reason I said happy and sad is because of what happened when we were running through the hallway trying to get to the stage.
Exactly.
And they're like, "Hey Mo, you won." What do you mean I won? Wait, they announced it already?
Exactly.
Man,
I late through that. Yeah.
I know you had to be happy and sad.
Yeah,
all at the same time.
It was happy and sad, and like it just like
you still got to take your pictures and stuff.
Oh yeah,
though, so
absolutely.
That was cool.
Absolutely. So yeah, it was definitely one of those things, man. So what we're gonna do is EDM is $1 billion direct offshoot of house music, and a lot of those producers draw directly from your influence. It's also seen that a total lack of people of color is represented. How do you feel about that, of not having a direct economic benefit in the same way of non-black producers and DJs have of what you created?
It's just another one of those learning experiences where you can look at it and you can analyze it and say, how did they pull that off without us? It's because we didn't really create anything ourselves. We didn't, like we had promoters and people that were doing big parties and even like what the Chosen Few does with their thing, that's like technically a festival.
Yes.
But we didn't have a lot of us organizing things like that. So without us putting together that kind of network and getting the right money behind it, I mean, it goes deeper than just that though, because the opportunity, just us as a people, we don't have the same opportunity anyway. So to have the financing to put something together on that level, we're not as privy to that to be able to put that kind of stuff together. So it takes a lot of effort on our part to be able to have our heroes be a part of something that big. You know what I'm saying? Like it takes a joint effort. I don't think that's over. I don't think it's like something that can't still happen. Yeah. I think you doing what you're doing here is helping because you're shining a light on where the music came from. Right. And how it all evolved. It didn't just come from the UK.
Absolutely.
And
so that being said, Steve, like you get a lot of people like, well, 90s music coming back. Do you ever get in your mode or music mode where you be like, I can do this in my sleep, like the night Jamanda, Black Box, you know, all that stuff. Do you think sometimes be like, I'll do this right now and make it happen? Because I think they earn it, they yearning for it, Steve, and nobody can really get it except for you.
Yeah, I mean, even when you do it, the one problem with the music industry, just like many other industries, is it's almost like you have to sell your soul to get the promotion. Yeah. Which is, I know what you're saying. Right. So either you do it on your own and see if you can reach the people, you can reach the people now directly. Right. So, I mean, they want you to they want you to, how can I put this? They don't want you to own anything.
Right.
So
Yeah.
they come in here and they try to scoop up your stuff. And if you don't sell, then they ain't promoting you. Like, so, I mean, it's like that in a lot of industries, you know, but, you know, it is what it is. You live and learn. That's why, you know, we had ID Records, Ecotron Records. I had Silk Entertainment. Skip had Push Pack. I had, and we had SNS. Like, that's why we do what we do. We want to provide the opportunity.
Good. So all of your remixes and productions, name your top 3 favorite and why.
Remixes and productions.
Yep. Either one.
You might want to go on SNSChicago.com and look at the blog I did. Because we did one called Top 30 Productions and Top 40 Remixes. Okay, and so, I talk about all of that, but I would say...
No. Give me your top 3 remixes then.
Top 3 remixes would be maybe Crystal Waters, Making Happy.
All right.
I see I'm going to end up shortchanging something.
No.
Michael Jackson, Remember the Time.
Okay.
Prince, Get Off. I mean, but I don't know if that's the top 3, but that's 3 of the top ones. But there's other ones that I like maybe even better, but they might not have been as successful.
Right.
Because Mike is Mike.
Right.
You know.
So what is a Steve Hurley record you felt was slept on and expected to go a lot further but didn't?
Oh. Let me think of one. Higher, but with me, Vanessa Mitchell.
Yes.
Vanessa Mitchell and.
You don't think that got its just due?
I don't think it didn't get. It's like a classic to the house heads and to the people that know house music.
Right.
But it never crossed into like, I feel like it could have been a big gospel record.
Yeah, you're right.
And I feel like it could have been a big R&B audience record too. Okay. And I feel like it could reach a lot of. I still feel like it's not too late, but
No,
I just feel like it was ahead of its time.
Yeah.
You know, like when I listen to it, I'm like, wow, that should have done more than what it did. Like,
I feel you in that because that was pre DJ Spin.
Yeah.
You know, that type of vibe, or the gospel vibe like that. So yeah, you were definitely ahead of time on that one, brother. So we all have at least one project we wish we could get another shot at. Name one that you may heard it different, or you had another chance that, you know, you think like.
Oh, a project that I did that I wish I could do over again?
Yeah. At another shot at that you like, man, if I can just do this one over.
Would it be
that you may heard it different and you had another chance at?
Maybe maybe was it Lisa Stansfield? No. Because some of my stuff in the late '90s, Lisa Stansfield, I felt like I was disconnected from the people. Like I didn't know what they wanted.
Right.
So instead of just doing what I felt, I tried to just kind of do what I thought they might want.
And which record with Lisa Stansfield was this one?
The Real Thing or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was okay. I mean, if you listen to it, you'd be like, it's cool. But I feel like I could have done even better.
Right.
Yeah, but I mean, I was a perfectionist, still am, you know. So
no, absolutely.
So I try to be happy, try to make sure I'm making myself happy with what I'm sending out.
Right. Okay. Okay, so tell us about your label, SNS Records, and your partnership with Skip, and what has been your victories and what is in the future.
Skip and I, we kind of came from 2 different generations.
Right.
Because he was after me, like 15 years younger than me. So his experience was more as being a DJ over in France, Ibiza, and different places like that. And we always used to run into each other, and we met officially in the grocery store in 2004 at Ultra Foods. Talked in the frozen food sections about going to hoop, and we started hooping together. Then next thing you know, a year later, we started SNS and we did the Chicago LP, which we interviewed you on.
Yes, sir.
And that was a project where we were interviewing, doing exactly what you're doing, but it was in a different. We did it a different way, like. It was for whatever was happening then. We did a DVD where we wanted to just get people's story of how they got into.
Because y'all was doing like almost like an MTV Cribs type of vibe.
Yeah.
Where you come in everybody's crib.
Yeah, so it was cool. That's why I really admire what you guys are doing, because you're getting to the bottom of it.
Yeah.
And you're not leaving any stones unturned. But
Right,
like as far as Skip and I though, the SNS brand, we when we launched that project, we always had the SNS brand.
Yes,
and
sir.
That
Yes, sir.
we're really about pushing that.
Right.
And it's helped us globally. People are recognizing the brand, because we do a lot of records every year, 40 or 50 records a year,
Right.
and we involve people from all different parts of the world.
Right.
But unfortunately, the music business is a little bit different now than it used to be, where you could just put out a record and you automatically selling 10, 20, 30,000 copies. But there are no copies anymore. It's just you're listening to music,
right.
and you're getting you're getting pennies every times several people stream. You know what I'm saying? So it's a different monetization of the business now. So we're doing a lot of different things. We actually have a podcast we've been working on.
Okay.
We do events. We got a merchandise line. We're about positive people, and that's why when you said you want me to do this, I know it took a long time to get it on the schedule, but
it was good,
but there was no way I wasn't going to do this.
I appreciate it,
because I love what you guys are doing. You really shedding some light. So what's unsung heroes too.
What's your gear list looking like right now? Because back in the day we had the computers, we had the S9000, the S900, S1100. What does Steve Hurley gear list look like right now?
It's mostly based in the computer.
Okay.
Laptop.
All right, so are you Pro Tools,
laptop,
Logic,
Apollo,
Ableton? What you doing?
Do Studio One.
Okay, Studio One.
And just a plethora of plugins, instruments, like all different type, whatever I hear that I like.
Right.
And I try not to be stubborn, but I also try not to be lazy and use the technology too much and just be grabbing loops and throwing them in any place.
Okay.
I still try to keep some kind of authentic
but that's
things
good,
within my music, and have people feel what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I still play my own keys and just try to make people feel what I'm feeling within a record, Okay.
Well, Hurl, brother, this has been a pleasure, man. Again, thank you. I'm honored, brother. Like I say, man, I got in this game because of you. When you took me underneath your wing, man, you definitely showed me how to produce. And I'm definitely, grateful for that, man, because I learned a lot with the ID crew, man. And from songwriting, from you telling me take each 8-bar measure and do something different. You can use the same pattern, different instrumentation, and be something totally different. So, that's a lot where I learned from my songwriting producing, man.
Wow.
And I thank you. I want to give you your flowers right now. Once again, subscribe, y'all. Hit the notification button. Steve, you got anything you want to say before we wrap it up, brother?
Wow. Let me see. Hey, like I said, I'm just excited about what you're doing for house music, because I know a lot of times people say, well, who's the Godfather and who's this and who did this, and don't you think you're the Godfather? People asking me that. And I'm like, there is no Godfather. I mean, no disrespect to anybody, but I feel like we all came together as a collective.
Yes, sir.
To make house music. We had a lot of love. Like I was using a drum machine to do I Can't Turn Around that what's his name? Vince Lawrence borrowed from Jesse Saunders, and I borrowed it from Vince, so I could use it for 8 hours to do a few tracks. So a lot of my stuff was on borrowed. Like we were borrowing each other's stuff, we were playing each other's stuff, and somehow along the road, when it becomes a business, sometimes people lose sight of the love that was there.
That's
and
true.
I'm glad. I feel like you're bringing the love back by letting everybody tell their story and remembering what it took in order for us to get to here.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
brother. Again, I love you, man. Thank you so much,
you too,
man.
Bro.
And once again, to Steve Hurley, the legendary brother. Remember that.
Yep.
Peace out, man.
All right.